Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 28 of the World of Sports podcast. I am your host, Diego Sandoval, joined as always by my co host, Logan Ring. Logan, say what's up to the people.
What's up, everyone?
We've got a great episode ahead of us today on this beautiful February 12th day. We're going to go into our Super Bowl recap. Obviously, that happened last Sunday. We're going to, as always, do our NBA takeaways from the week. It is week 8 of the NBA season. And start up a new series of our top 10 players at each position in the MLB, kind of leading up to the season starting. We're going to start off with our pitchers. So that should be fun. Um, as always, you can follow us on all of our social media accounts, TWOS Podcast on Instagram and Twitter, and then at the World of Sports Podcast on TikTok. Yeah, we've got more content there, even more than we talk about on the podcast. So go check that out if you have not already. As always, we are going to start off with the news from around the leagues. And obviously, the biggest piece of news, I would say, besides the Super Bowl in sports this week, was that Trevor Bauer has officially signed his deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers. He got 3 years, $102 million.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's a lot of money for a guy that almost had a breakout year. It was a lot better than most of the years in his career, but I think the Dodgers did a good job in terms of not screwing themselves over for the future. They gave him a lot of money in a short period of time, so I think it's a good deal for both teams.
Yeah, I'm glad we got your reaction on it because obviously Dodgers fans are very excited for this, but they have the money, so why not get a guy
Yeah,
like this? I mean, I don't think there's any downside to paying him this much if it's only 3 years and you're the Dodgers. So, yeah, great signing.
yeah, especially coming off this, he was the second best pitcher last year, and you're willing to take that risk if you're the
Yeah.
Dodgers. Also in the MLB, Andrew Benintendi has been traded to the Kansas City Royals. I think this is just another sign that the Red Sox are in a major rebuild right now. I honestly, if we get a full 162 game season like we are most likely going to, it looks like, I don't see them winning more than 60 games this year. That team is not
Yeah, they're
very
not
good.
they're not good.
Um, they speaking of the Red Sox, they signed Frenchie Cordero, which he's a solid young guy, but it's weird. The Red Sox fans are insanely like hyped up about this guy. I don't know if it's just like a meme because their team is so bad, but it's like everyone is on the Frenchie Cordero train right now. That's why I included it. It wouldn't be that big of news because he's just kind of a decent young guy. But hey, Red Sox fans are excited about something. That's good. Um, Also in the MLB, the Twins have re-signed Nelson Cruz to a 1-year, $13 million deal. I think it's a good signing. Yes, he's old, but he'll still hit 40 home runs if it's a full season. Um, and the Twins kind of need that in their lineup with how good their offense has kind of carried them the past couple seasons. I think Nelson Cruz is a great bring back, if that's even a
Yeah,
term.
he's so old, but being a DH, you can kind of just go out there and do your thing. So he can put up 40 home runs a season. And I mean, the Twins offense is already insane. So this is a great signing too.
Yeah. Staying in the MLB, Chris Bryant trade talks have picked right back up with the Mets. They kind of slowed down. I think it was during the time Trevor Bauer was trying to make his decision. The Mets were gonna ease off on Chris Bryant and focus on Trevor Bauer. But now that they didn't get Bauer, it looks like they're gonna try to go all in on Chris Bryant. And I think if they are able to do that and trade him for some prospects or something, um, that team is already, I think, going to be good next year, or this year. But with Chris Bryant added, alongside Francisco Lindor as their 1-2 punch, I think that's going to make that team a lot better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
um, and then just some arbitration news. The Dodgers and Walker Bueller have come to an agreement on a 2-year, $8 million deal. So that's It's a pretty fat steal for a guy like Bueller.
I don't know how
Um,
they pulled that off.
Me neither. I think a lot of it is that he just wants to be a Dodger. He'll get his money, and it honestly might be next year, but obviously latest is in 2 years. He's going to get his money, and I'm sure the Dodgers will offer it to him. But I think it's smart of them to keep him on that arbitration deal at least for while Trevor Bauer is still on contract.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean
yeah,
they got a ton of money, but I mean if you're able to get a guy who could be a Cy Young winner sometime for $8 million in 2 years, that's like one of the biggest steals of the offseason. I don't think people are really talking about it, but that's like insane. And you just signed Bauer to like 40 million over the next 2 years, so it's perfect for them.
yeah. Um, Kind of big MLB news came out this past week in terms of like the league, not even specific teams. The MLB did announce that they are deadening the baseballs this year. This is kind of a hot topic of discussion the past couple of years because people were just hitting home runs left and right, and people saying they were juicing the balls. Rob Manfred never really came out and said that they juiced the balls necessarily, but everyone kind of knew just because it had never happened at this rate. And so he did announce this last week sometime that they are deadening the baseballs. And basically, what he said is it's the equivalent of moving every outfield fence in 10 feet. Or
Out
yeah,
10 feet.
out 10 feet. So it'll be that much harder to hit home runs. Pitchers are obviously love it. Hitters, I mean, if you really think about it, a lot of home runs go farther than 10 feet past the fence. So Um, there hasn't been too much backlash in terms of hitters getting mad at Rob Manfred, but I mean, it was an interesting move considering the MLB is all into entertainment right now, and they're trying to make the game more fun to watch. Um, but I think it's an interesting move to change up the baseballs this season.
Yeah, I don't think it's a very good look at all because he basically just like showed that he's been lying for the last couple of years when people have called him out, and he's already a lot of fans don't like him because of a bunch of things, but like recently, like the whole Astros thing, and then it's just it's you can't really put a lot of trust in the owner of the league, which is just kind of I don't know. It's not a great look for baseball.
Yeah. We'll see how it impacts the game. I'm sure the impact will obviously be less home runs, but I don't see it being that massive. It's just not a good look to Rob Manfred, and who's
Yeah,
already a pretty negative image in terms of baseball fans around the world. Also in MLB news, they have kind of released the season outline. It so last season we had, if games were postponed, there were 7 inning doubleheaders. Kind of later on in the year, if you play them in another series, that's going to happen again. Again, that's kind of just minimizing the travel that you need to do, and just trying to stay as safe as possible as we're kind of almost seeing the light at the end of the tunnel with in terms of COVID. But you still got to be as safe as possible for the next season or however long it takes. Um, Also, similar to last year, there will be runners placed on second base during extra innings. That's just another way to kind of limit game time and limit exposure. And then, but this year, what is different from last year is that there is no universal DH. So last year, every team in the NL and AL had a DH. This year, they're going back. NL doesn't have a DH. AL does. It's kind of a pretty highly debated topic. I like seeing pitchers hit. I think it's funny. Um, I know you're an AL guy, so you're more of a DH kind of fan.
yeah. I'm glad we got both sides of this because like yeah, there are funny things like Portillo Colon home run, like that's absolutely legendary, but also like it's kind of boring when you have to like intentionally walk a guy like half the time so you can get to the pitcher to get like a third out. So I like making baseball a little more exciting, but also pitchers are sometimes exciting too. So I get both sides of the argument.
Yeah, and I understand wanting to have both in the league because it's a a moderate solution to either one extreme or the other. Um, Moving on from the MLB, that's all the news we have from baseball. NBA. Christian Wood, we reported on it last week. He sprained his ankle. It was reported that it is a high ankle sprain, and he will be reevaluated weekly. So it's not a bad one in terms of, he's out 4 to 6 weeks right away. It looks like they're just going to kind of take it week by week and see where he is on that basis. So Christian Wood, before he was injured, I think we both thought he was kind of the most improved player front runner at this point. So hoping he's back soon. I
Yeah,
like his.
I'm glad it's not super serious because it looked really bad when it happened.
Yeah, he's got a good story too. He's a good player for the NBA. So Drew Holiday, it's actually kind of an interesting situation with Drew Holiday. I believe it was 3 days ago, um, he missed the Bucks game for whatever reason. They didn't announce it. And then after the game, they were giving a post game interview with Chris Middleton, and Chris Middleton basically was like, "Oh yeah, Drew Holiday is out with like COVID and stuff," and everyone was like, "Wait, what? Like, timeout? They didn't tell us that." And then Chris Middleton kind of was like, "Oh, never mind. Like, I'm not supposed to say that." So, and the Bucks haven't said anything about it yet. So it looks like he might be out for the quarantine period of 2 weeks. If he is, I think that's a pretty big blow to the Bucks. He's kind of their guard, and yes, Middleton and Giannis can run the offense fine, but Drew Holiday was a pretty solid third option for them so far this year.
Yeah, he also might be the best defensive guard in the entire league.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Bucks have a pretty deep team though, so I don't expect them to like fall in the standings really that much. But I mean, he's obviously a big part of the team, so this is definitely a blow to them. And we saw them lose to the Suns by I think like 1 point a couple nights ago. So maybe with Drew Holiday that would have been different.
Yeah. Also in injury, COVID news, that kind of realm, DeAndre Hunter of the Atlanta Hawks is out 7 to 10 weeks after having a knee surgery. Um, he was looking really good at the beginning of this season. Kind of this, part of that young core of the Hawks with, Trae Young, John Collins, Onyeka Okongwu, um, one of the best names in the NBA. But he'll be out 7 to 10 weeks. You know more about this than I do.
Yeah, he could have been like a sneaky most improved player this year. He's shooting the three ball way better. He's obviously really good defensively, and the Hawks might be in the playoffs. And they got like Cam Reddish to sort of fill this spot, but he hasn't looked very good this year. And we didn't really know what the injury was. He was kind of just day to day for the last like week or two, and then this just came out that he needed surgery. So it's just really unfortunate, and the Hawks really needed him. So yeah, this could be sort of a turning point in the season because he was a really big part of their team.
Yeah. The last piece of NBA news is again kind of a league-wide news. They are discussing, which I think would be pretty interesting. With the whole All-Star weekend, it's kind of a controversy right now. They're not sure how many events they want to have. They're trying to limit exposure as much as possible. But right now, it is in the talks to have the NBA dunk contest at halftime of the NBA All-Star game. And I mean, dude, that's a pretty dope halftime show.
I like that.
I think that'd be cool. And, usually All-Stars don't really do the dunk contest, at least not in the past couple years, which is unfortunate. I've always wanted to see, a guy like LeBron play, do a dunk contest. But, I mean, who knows? Zach LaVine is on his way to being an All-Star this year, and he's obviously always a dunk contest, he's in the running for it. So we'll see what they do. I'd imagine if it's at halftime of the All-Star game, they wouldn't have any All-Stars do it, but we'll see. Really, it's just talks right now, but I think it's an interesting concept.
Yeah, I mean for normal like All Star weekend, they have a dunk contest over like a day, and it makes a lot of money, even though it usually isn't that exciting. We've had years recently have been like great, but I mean some years just like all right, that was the dunk contest.
Yeah.
So at halftime, it doesn't really put a ton of pressure on the NBA to like have this great like I don't know, just like spectacle of like legendary dunks or whatever.
Right.
Um,
It's
but
definitely not what it used to be.
it's not. The last insane one was the Zach LaVine, Aaron Gordon one. which was just like probably the best dunk contest of all time.
That was
Um,
ridiculous.
yeah, but I really like this idea because they probably wouldn't have it otherwise. So, yeah, good for them for coming up with this.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's the NBA news. In the NFL, JJ Watt has been released by the Texans. Um, he came forward, he asked for a release, and he got it right away. Um, which is interesting considering, Deshaun Watson has yet to,
Yep.
get what he wants. And I get JJ Watt is kind of, has been their guy for so long, and he probably holds a higher, power in the organization than Deshaun Watson does. But I don't I don't know, dude. The Texans are losing guys left and right, but they don't want to, go into rebuild mode. It's like they're kind of almost in denial at this point.
Yeah, it seems like a hostage situation at this point. Like, oh yeah, you're allowed to go, but I know you've been wanting out for like a long time, but we just don't care. We're gonna keep you. And I feel like this is just kind of a slap in the face for Watson because like I would be really mad if this was if this was my situation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you. I feel like they are in denial because he does not want to be there and he's gonna get out eventually. So just trade him, please.
Yeah. He deserves better for sure. Um Tom Brady plans to have minor knee surgery in the offseason. It's nothing big, he said. He said he's been planning to have it for months now. I think it's just kind of a, procedural surgery, kind of just there's a little thing wrong, so he doesn't want to, obviously he's almost 50 years old. Um, he doesn't want to risk anything. Shouldn't affect anything. I think he's supposed to be ready for training camp next year. So it's nothing big, just that he's going into for knee surgery. The Raiders are planning to release Tyrell Williams. He signed with the Raiders 2 years ago. Has only played half a season. Saw it coming. It frees up cap space, and he's just been injured. Um, so we'll see. It looks like that might signal that the Raiders are in the market for a wide receiver. Guys like Marvin Jones, Juju Smith-Schuster. Those are kind of some not the most elite guys, but I think guys that the Raiders could definitely go after this offseason. But we'll see. Cutting Tyrell Williams definitely signifies that they're in the market for wide receivers. And then last piece of news from the NFL is that Carson Wentz trade talks. They're picking up. Obviously, I see it happening. I think it's a smart thing for the Eagles to do, especially with the way Jalen Hurts kind of took over and ran that team towards the end of the season. Um, I see Carson Wentz getting traded this offseason. It looks like they might be asking a bit too much, but I mean, we'll see. Usually, when that happens, especially with a guy that's kind of already been deemed a backup on the team that he's on, they're going to find a trade for him. But we'll see. And the last little piece of news, to kind of toot our own horns, we went 7 for 7 on NFL awards predictions. Congratulations, my friend. We did it. Um, if you missed it, Aaron Rodgers won MVP. Aaron Donald won Defensive Player of the Year. Derrick Henry won Offensive Player of the Year. Chase Young won Defensive Rookie of the Year. Justin Herbert won Offensive Rookie of the Year. Coach of the Year was Kevin Stefanski. And the Comeback Player of the Year was Alex Smith, as we brilliantly predicted. So, if you ever need predictions for anything, just know we're always right. Especially when it comes to this next topic, and that is the Super Bowl.
Oh my god.
Yeah, if you couldn't tell, we didn't get our Super Bowl predictions right.
Not even close.
We both had the Chiefs winning. That didn't happen. The Buccaneers just dominated all game, 31-9. I said on the Instagram that whoever was closest to the score prediction would get a shout out. And although this person was not close at all, he was the closest. And that is Charlie Biddle. Charlie, if you're listening, congratulations. Your prediction of 21-13 was the closest prediction on our page. Go follow him. That's his shout out that he gets. But 31-9. Kind of a boring Super Bowl. No.
Yeah.
I don't know. I expected more from these two teams.
It I mean, for like legacy standpoint from Brady, this is like, I mean, this is
He
legendary.
couldn't have
But
done better. Yeah.
yeah, uh, I just I wish it was close. That was all I was really hoping for. I wasn't really going for one side more than the other that much, but I just wanted a fun Super Bowl, and like it was never close at all. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, the Bucks defense was insane the whole
Yeah,
game.
they definitely won this game. They Yeah, the Chiefs did have, they were missing their left tackle, and I think they were missing one other guy on the offensive line. But that you got to give credit to, Shaq Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul, Levante David played great. They were just able to get pressure on Mahomes, and I'm giving 100% full credit. Shout out to Patrick Mahomes because he did absolutely everything he could. He was making diving throws, 360, just hucking it up in the air, and they would hit the receivers. One of them hit him in the helmet and he missed it.
I think
Like,
two did.
yeah, like, I don't know. I guess, it shows that the Chiefs aren't, this unstoppable force in the league. Um, that, if you can get pressure to Mahomes, they're going to have trouble. Um, but I mean, this isn't the end of the Chiefs, like a lot of people are saying. I think they're going to be back. But yeah, so much credit goes out to the Bucks defense and being able to figure out how to stop that offense.
Yeah, I feel like I don't remember the Chiefs having like an actual bad game in the
Yeah,
past like 2 years, and then it just happened at the perfectly wrong time for them.
exactly.
And every single receiver, it seemed like, forgot how to catch a ball, and Patrick Mahomes made some of the wildest throws I've ever seen, and
Hmm.
they should have been at least like 2 touchdowns there. But yeah, credit to the Bucks defense for pressuring him, and then I don't know, just doing every little thing that they could to make it difficult.
Yeah, it's crazy because in the past, I think it was basically 2 seasons, 1.5 seasons. The Chiefs had one loss, and it was to the Raiders earlier this year, and it was like a back and forth, highly like offensive powered game. So it's not like they like heavily lost the game. The Chiefs are always in the game and high scoring. So it was just really uncharacteristic of the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So that's what we've got on the Super Bowl. You know, we did a little bit of, asking around of our listeners, see what they wanted us to talk about. My boy Fetty, if you're listening, shout out. He asked us to talk about if Tom Brady was the GOAT. And absolutely he is. You know, 7 rings, 10 Super Bowl appearances. You can't really argue with it at this point. Like there was an argument in terms of it was Belichick. There's no argument for that anymore. I think it's pretty undisputed that he's the GOAT.
Yeah, they always move the like narrative and moving the goalpost of like what Brady needs to do. And I don't even know like what people can come up with at this point.
There's nothing
Like
he can do. Yeah.
and at that point, like I don't know how you can really dispute it. So yeah,
Yeah.
this just sealed it in my
So
opinion.
congrats to the Buccaneers. And congrats to Tom Brady. And shout out to Gronk. Gronk came out of retirement, got 2 touchdowns. Antonio Brown, as much as I absolutely hate him, he had a good game. Um, so yeah, Leonard Fournette also played well for the Bucks, 89 rushing yards and a touchdown. All around, pretty dominant performance from the Buccaneers. Now moving on to our NBA Week 8 takeaways. We do this every week, and it is week 8 of the NBA season. I'll start it off. One of my takeaways, we've kind of been seeing this all season, but it's interesting because he hasn't really been talked about too much. Zion Williamson, he is living up to the hype. Obviously he had all the hype last year as the number 1 pick. This year, he's averaging 23.8 points per game and 7 rebounds on 59.9% shooting, which is
That's
ridiculous.
crazy.
That I think the stat was um, he just passed or he passed Shaq for best field goal percentage like in your first 100 games or something like that. I don't know what it was. or first like 1,000 points that you score. He had like the highest field goal percentage out of any player. Um, and it's so crazy because he got so much hype last year, and he was good last year, no doubt about that. But he's playing so much better this year, and he's not getting talked about as much.
Yeah, it's like I guess it's the LaMelo effect and the whole like
Hmm. The
it's
whole
the next
rookie,
rookie up.
yeah, the rookie
Yeah,
phenomenon.
and LaMelo's been fantastic, so he deserves all the like hype around him too. But you can't just forget about Zion. And also, they signed Steven Adams, who cannot shoot and is always in the paint. And a defender is always in the paint to guard him because they're not going to go out to the 3 point line if he's there. So Zion has to take on like two guys at the rim, and he's still shooting 60% from the field. It's that's like a stat I've never seen from a guy. I think he's like 6'7". I mean, obviously
Yeah.
he's like 280 pounds, an absolute freak, but that's just wild, and nobody is talking about it.
Yeah,
Um,
he's ridiculous.
yeah. So moving on to my first takeaway, I want to talk about the Jazz for a second because I feel like people are kind of taking them for granted right now because they're 20-5, but nobody's like, oh, they're a contender or anything.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people
Um,
are kind of at this point like, oh, they'll slow down.
yeah, and they've been saying that for the last like month,
Yeah,
and they haven't. And maybe they will, but they haven't shown any sign of it. So they're 20-5, which is the best record in the entire NBA. They just keep winning. And I think the main reason for that is their defense is really good, but also their offense is insane and has really ramped up from past seasons. They're shooting 40% from three as a team, which is insane.
that's ridiculous.
And that's on 42 and a half attempts per game, which is a very large sample size at this point, like almost halfway through the season.
Yeah,
And I think Quinn Snyder deserves Coach of the Year right now. He's completely changed up their scheme to shoot more threes, which is kind of what the NBA is obviously moving towards. And they're doing great. They got shooters on their team, so this is perfect for them. And just they're an all-around team. They're the fourth best offense, and they have the fourth best offensive and defensive rating in the league. And I don't think any other team is fourth best in both. And obviously, when you do that, you win championships. And I'm not saying the Jazz are going to win championships, but I just want them to get some credit.
yeah. We're seeing Donovan Mitchell perform. I mean, he's obviously insane in the bubble, but I think he's one of the few guys that have kind of carried over and really built on that. And he's playing at obviously I think he's putting up career numbers. It's looking like it. Um, and then obviously they have Rudy Gobert too, who's really picked it up offensively, and obviously he's one of the best, if not the best, interior defender in the NBA. Um, and then Mike Conley, he's been out for a little bit with an injury, but he was looking really good before that. Jordan Clarkson has played really well. Joe Ingles, my guy. Um,
Boyan.
Bojan. That
Boyan has been playing great recently.
Yeah, that team is starting to come together for the Jazz. Um, and as you said, best record in the NBA, so it's working out for him. Now, my takeaway, it's kind of a all NBA one, and it's been the trend the past however many years. The East is terrible. Now, either the East is terrible or the West is insane. I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But just some context, an 11-13 team is the 8th seed in the West, like in the East, I mean, making the playoffs. Meanwhile, in the West, an 11-13 team is the 13th seed. That's the third worst. Um, that's insane in and of itself. The 12-11 Celtics are fourth in the conference. It's crazy to me that, and then the West has two 20-win teams in the Jazz and the Lakers. Clippers are playing really well. Nuggets are playing really well, but I don't know. I guess they just aren't good. I don't really know much else to say.
Yeah, they're a little top heavy because their top teams are good, but
Yeah.
once you get past, like even the Celtics should be a little bit better, but they're like 500 and the fourth best team right now. And then from like 4 through 10 or whatever, it's like everybody's within 2 games and they all are like barely at 500. And meanwhile, in the West, they have like teams above 500 in like the 12th spot, which is
Exactly.
it. It just it kind of shows how much of a difference there is, and it's crazy that this has like lasted so long. Because I
Yeah.
feel like the last time the East was like as good as the West was like almost when Jordan played, which
Yeah.
is crazy because you'd think it would have at least like swapped at some point, but I don't know what's up with them. But
It's
yeah,
what made me want to talk about this is, it could have been like 2 weeks ago or a week ago. It was, the Wizards were like 3-15, 5-15, whatever they were, not good. But and like I was watching the game, and one of the sideline reporters was like, "Oh yeah, the Wizards, 2.5 games out of a playoff spot." I was like, "What?" Like, you can be that bad and be in the playoff hunt. Like, that's crazy.
yeah. Um, okay, I'm gonna move on to my last topic, which the title I put for this is rant on Andre Drummond.
I'm gonna give everyone, a quick little sidebar. Um, Cavs fans really don't like Andre Drummond. Like really don't like it's bad. Like they hate him. Um, so that's what you're hearing right now. Go ahead, Logan.
Yeah. Well, let me give you some of the reasons why that is. Okay. First of all, I want to just say that I don't hate Andre Drummond because I'm a Cavs fan and we're not like performing well. I hate him because of I don't hate Andre Drummond at all, by the way. He's on my fantasy team. I want him to do well. I'm not hoping he doesn't succeed. I'm just mad and frustrated at what he's doing. Let me give you some stats right here. He's shooting 54% around the rim. That by itself doesn't sound terrible, but then when you look at league average, that includes guards, shooting guards, everyone. The average is 62.6. Andre Drummond, our 6'11, 250-pound center, is in the 14th percentile of shooting around the rim. That means he's just hucking up shots for no reason. We're trying to trade this guy too, and his value is going way down. I don't know if he's trying to get like money for next season, probably because he's on an expiring deal. But then I just looked up somebody like DeAndre Ayton can sort of get compared to Andre Drummond, like a big guy, same sort of like build. He's obviously like a better shooter and he's way younger, so he can get better. He's shooting 72% from around the rim, and that's just the first guy I looked up. That's 20% better around the rim as a center. That is awful. And also Drummond, if you ever watch Cavs games, I'm sure most people don't, but he like dribbles through his legs and then like shoots a mid ranges sometimes. I just don't know what he's doing. He has 3.5 turnovers per game, and he's getting benched for JaVale McGee sometimes now, which is just so frustrating to me. Um,
um,
so I
yeah,
just want him to get traded, please.
they'll probably trade him for a backup center.
I don't. They can trade him for a bag of chips at this point. I don't
uh,
care.
yeah, but like the weird thing is, like, if you don't watch Cavs games, as most people don't, he puts up insane numbers.
Yeah,
So it's like people are like, "Oh, Andre Drummond! Like, why do people hate Andre Drummond? He's so good." But and they pretty obviously don't need him, especially adding Jared Allen, who I think is going to be their center of the future. Um, I think it's pretty clear that it's in their best interest to trade him.
yeah. And the lineup that Coach JB Bickerstaff is putting out right now is the starting lineup is Drummond at the center and Jared Allen at the power forward. And two centers
I know how I
playing
feel
in the
about that.
game has been sort of like shown to be bad in the last like 10 years. Nobody's done that because it's like obvious it's terrible. The last time that worked was like, I don't know, maybe the Lakers and like the Kobe era.
Mhm.
Um, but even then, it's like people are like, we just do this because the fit is weird. But man, it's just frustrating that the he's just doing too much and he's not doing it well.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So, PSA, Cavs, trade him, you know? Um, so that's all we got for our NBA takeaways. Now I'm excited for this new kind of series that we're gonna start doing. Um, especially leading up to MLB season. I'm excited. I'm excited for baseball season. I'm a big baseball fan. We both are. Um, but we've got our top 10 pitchers in the MLB. Now, the way we think we're going to do this is we're going to kind of go back and forth with each number. We've each got two honorable mentions, or at least I do. Um, so we'll start off with those. I'll kick it off. So my two honorable mentions, they just missed the cut, is Aaron Nola of the Phillies and Dinelson Lamet of the San Diego Padres. Nola didn't have the best season last year. He was 5-5, but I mean, he still had a 3.2 ERA with a 1.08 WHIP, which are good numbers. And 2 years ago, I think it was 2018, he finished second or third in the NL Cy Young race. And I definitely see him kind of improving from last season, definitely. And then Dinelson Lamet, he's a young guy, for the Padres, part of that big staff they just bolstered this offseason. He was 3-1 last season with a 2.09 ERA and a 0.86 WHIP. I think he's getting a little bit overlooked going into this season just because they have guys like Blake Snell, Yu Darvish, but I think those two guys are in for good seasons. I just don't have them at top 10 right now.
Yeah, so my two guys, my first one was Aaron Nola, so I'm not really going to talk about him because you just covered him. But my second was Kenta Maeda. I just kind of wanted to throw him in there because of how good his season was last year. Honestly, most of his career, he's been kind of an average pitcher, which is not bad at all, but just being on the Dodgers kind of got him more hype and made him look a little bit better. But last season, he had a record of 6-1 with an ERA of 2.7. And he also led the league in WHIP at 0.75. He just had a really good season. He started off even better than he finished. So his ERA was like sub 2 for half the season. I just wanted to give him a shout out because I don't think there's not a high chance that he's gonna like replicate this. That's why I don't have him in my top 10. But I just wanted to give him a shout out for that.
Yeah, shout out Kenta. Glad to see him thriving. But yeah, I don't see him replicating the season he had last year. But he's obviously, I think, I'd put him in the top 15. I'd say. Now, starting off our top 10. Number 10, I have Max Fried of the Atlanta Braves. Do we have the same list, Logan?
Yeah, we made sure we didn't show each other these lists, and already two have been the same.
So I guess I'll say the stats for both of us. He was 7-0 last year. I feel like he got really overlooked. He was 7-0 with a 2.25 ERA, 50 strikeouts, and a 1.09 WHIP. And he's still pretty young. I think he's improving every season, and I think this year he's obviously gonna do well if I have him as a top 10 pitcher in the MLB. But yeah, I think Max Fried is a really good ace for that Braves team that's usually talked about for their offense.
Yeah, you kind of covered it all. That's perfect. So I'm gonna move on. My number 9 guy is Lucas Giolito. This might be a sort of a surprise because his stats aren't insane, but I think he could have a breakout season. And he was an all-star last year, not this one because they didn't really do that, but he threw a no-hitter. He obviously has like insane stuff. He can strike out people like left and right. I know how valuable he is from like fantasy teams because of he's always like top 5 in pitching just because of how many people he striked out.
Yeah.
And the White Sox, they don't really have an ace, but this could kind of be it. So I'm just kind of predicting he can be a lot better, and he showed how good he can be. He's had stretches where he's just like insanely dominant, and then the next game he's not really. But I think he can put it together at some point, and I don't see why next year he can't.
Yeah, especially on that White Sox team, who I think, is a little early, but later we're gonna give our MLB season prediction, and I think the White Sox are gonna succeed this year. I like Lucas that pick. At number 9, I have Hyun-Jin Ryu, of the Toronto Blue Jays. Repping today. Hyun-Jin Ryu, he was second in Cy Young voting last year, I believe. I think, behind Shane Bieber. He was 5-2 with a 2.69 ERA, 72 strikeouts, and a 1.15 WHIP. You know, I've seen him pitch. He was a Dodger. I like watching him pitch. I think he's a really solid pitcher, and I think he found kind of a home in Toronto where he can be that ace. Um, and I think his season last year was a little bit overlooked. Like, to finish second in Cy Young Award voting, that's pretty good. And granted, it was a shortened season, but hey, everyone had a shortened season, so you can't really take away his stats. Um, I think Hyunjin Ryu is on the come up, and I honestly believe that he's gonna improve this year. Now, number 8, I have Walker Bueller of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Last year was a weird year for Bueller. He had this nagging blister basically all season, and the Dodgers kind of almost babied him with it. I mean, because they could, they were ahead in the division by enough where they could kind of ease up on Bueller. So in the regular season, he was 1-0 with 3.44 ERA and a .95 WHIP. But when he ended up getting healthy enough to start throwing every day in the playoffs, he was 2-0 with a 1.8 ERA in 5 games. I think he's a guy that's a future Cy Young Award winner. And to say that I still have 2 more Dodgers on my list is pretty crazy. Um, but yeah, I've got Walker Bueller at 8. I think he's gonna take a big step this year.
Yeah, I have him at 7, so I won't cover him when we get there. But at my 8 spot, I got you Darvish. Had an amazing season last year, and over the course of his career, he's kind of been a little up and down, but he's consistently been a very solid pitcher. Um, he actually led the league in FIP, which I don't think many people know what that is. It's fielding independent pitching, which is a really advanced stat. But
Yep.
I mean, I think that just shows that like the pitching numbers just he's really good, even if people don't really realize it. He finished second in Cy Young voting for the NL, 8 wins, which led the league. Uh, he's he's obviously, yeah, like I said, up and down, but he can have seasons like this just kind of out of nowhere, and I think he can pick it up where he left off. He's not too old; he's going to be 34 years old, and I think he kind of figured it out last season. Kind of like go back to where he was earlier in his career. And yeah, I think he can carry that over. He strikes out like everybody he faces. So
Yeah.
really solid pitcher.
I think we both have, well, number 7. I had you Darvish, and you had Walker Bueller, correct?
Yeah.
Um, the reason I have Darvish at 7, obviously based on last season, he would be higher if we're just going based on that. But I don't think he'll be able to carry that over to this season. I think he's in a much better division. He's going to have to face the Dodgers quite a few times this year. Um, I mean, yeah, you said it. He's 8-3 last year, 2.01 ERA, .96 WHIP. He's a great pitcher, but we've seen throughout his career he's kind of been shaky at times, really up and down. He'll have an insane season, and then he'll kind of fall back into reality. So I have you Darvish at 7, and then you have Bueller at 7, correct?
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So my number, what is it, 6?
Yeah.
I have Clayton Kershaw.
Let's go. Same list.
You did. Okay.
I've got Kershaw at 6 too.
You could probably cover this more than me because you're a Dodgers fan, but I just want to say, like, he's 32. People say he's like an old man, but honestly, he's not that old. And he's been like consistently one of the best pitchers in the league for his career. Last season, he had a 2.16 ERA. That's just crazy. Yeah, I mean, he's just been dominant for his whole career. I'll let you say whatever you need to say.
Yeah. So Clayton Kershaw, I'm gonna tell a story about Clayton Kershaw. So he came into the league, throwing 95 miles per hour, had his dirty curveball that he's always had, and that was what he did. That was what he threw, and he was dominant. Obviously, 3 Cy Youngs and an MVP. And then starting in like 2016, 2017, he started to have these back problems, and people were like, "Oh no, is this the kind of the fall of Clayton Kershaw? Is he kind of on the downhill?" Obviously, he had his tough playoff performances. But then he kind of learned, I like to say he learned how to pitch like an old man. He stopped trying to throw 95 miles per hour, which what he was trying to do. And now he hovers 92, 93 with his fastball. He picked up a slider and a changeup. And I think that's really elevated his game a lot. Um, and, like you said, he's still putting up great numbers. He's in a contract year this year. So I think he's going to play really well. I hope he doesn't leave the Dodgers. We'll see. Um, but yeah, I still think for as long as he's dominated, Clayton Kershaw is still an elite pitcher in the MLB. Number 5, I have Max Scherzer of the Washington
Yep.
Nationals. Same list. He kind of had a down year last year by Max Scherzer standards, 5-4, 3.74 ERA, but we've seen how dominant he can get in terms of just overpowering guys, striking guys out left and right. Um, Obviously, multiple time Cy Young Award winner. Um, I think Max Scherzer is a top 5 pitcher in the MLB.
Yeah, over the past 8 seasons, he's finished top 5 in Cy Young voting 7 of those times. Last year was the only exception to that. And I don't think this is going to be like the downside of his career or whatever.
Yeah.
He's going to fall off. Last season, pitched like 10 games, 12 games. I mean, that's not a very big sample size to just say that somebody's fallen off.
Right.
And how dominant he's been over the course of his whole career, I don't think you can really keep him out of the top 5.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think this is a great pick, and I'm impressed we have like the same list again because we did not discuss this at all. So for my 4th pick, I have Garrett Cole.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I know this sounds low, but I'm kind of going off of last season as more important than I guess Diego is. But he's obviously like super dominant, and even though he's at 4, I don't feel like that's really like super low. This is the top 4 pitchers in the world. He finished 4th in Cy Young voting last season. He still had an insanely dominant year. He had a 2.84 ERA, 7-3. He's on the Yankees. They're obviously going to be good every year. He has a huge contract. And yeah, he throws super hard. He's got insane stuff. I don't like the Yankees, but you got to respect when people are good. So yeah, that's him.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have Garrett Cole at 4. I have Trevor Bauer at 4.
Okay.
Trevor Bauer obviously had his insane year last year, 5-4, 1.73 ERA with a 0.79 WHIP. On 100 strikeouts, he reached that 100 strikeout mark. Obviously, he got the big contract. If he, kind of rolls over and keeps pitching like he did last year, I'd say he's a top 3 pitcher. But I'm gonna need a bit more consistency with these numbers from Trevor Bauer because I'm pretty sure his ERA is pretty high. It's like in upper 3s, I believe. But the reason why he's at 4 is mainly because of this last season he had, and I'm expecting him to kind of maybe not replicate those same numbers, but I see him, having another good year, especially, with the Dodgers. It's a pitcher's park. I see Trevor Bauer as the number 4 pitcher in the MLB. And moving on to number 3, I have your boy Shane Bieber at this position. Shane Bieber, he's 8-1 last year, 1.63 ERA. He was the best pitcher in baseball in 2020. He had 122 strikeouts. He's got ridiculous stuff. UCSB product. Shout out Santa Barbara. Shout out Shane Bieber. I'm sure you obviously know more about Shane Bieber. I'm not sure where you have him on your list, but you'll talk about him later. I just think Shane Bieber is going to dominate the MLB for years to come.
Yeah, I had Bauer at 3 and then Shane Bieber at 2. So Shane Bieber, he's only been in the league for 3 years, and I've kind of seen him play those 3 years because I'm an Indians fan. And people say like this was his breakout season, which it was, but he's been really good since he came into the league. And last season, like I've never seen a pitcher pitch like this, and obviously it was a shortened season, so obviously it's a small sample size, and he got hot, so it was perfect for him. But yeah, he was 8-1 with a 1.63 ERA. That's just crazy, and 14.2 strikeouts per nine. Like I don't really know what it was. His curveball's insane. His fastball's good, but I guess people just couldn't really figure him out.
Yeah.
And he pitched so well that season, and I'm definitely biased because I'm an Indians fan, but I just didn't see a pitcher this good last season, so that's why I have him this high.
I would have him at 2, but the one thing that notched him down was his postseason appearance against the Yankees, where he just got shelled. Again, I'm a Shane Bieber fan. He went to college in our hometown. I just hope he doesn't, he's able to kind of figure it out in the playoffs, or, you know, I'm hoping that, the Yankees weren't able to kind of figure him out as the season went along and they cracked his code. But we'll see.
Yeah, I think there was a stat where he didn't give up more than 3 runs all season, which is wild. But then I think in 2 innings he gave up 4 runs to the Yankees in the postseason, which, as an Indians fan, I'm used to completely melting down in the playoffs. So that's unfortunate. But it's obviously it's way too soon to say. I just don't think you can really blame him for one bad game, even though he had a terrible time.
And so you had Bieber at your 2. My number 2 is Garrett Cole. A lot of people looked at last year as kind of like what happened, Garrett Cole? You're not good anymore. But he also went 7-3 with a 2.68 ERA, 108 strikeouts, a .88 WHIP. I still think he's, I guess, the second best pitcher in the league. We saw how dominant he was with the Astros. He's on that, 10-year deal now, 12 years, something like that, with the Yankees. Ridiculous stuff. He'll throw 100 miles per hour up until the 8th inning of a game. He's got his slider. I just think he's got all the makings of a top-tier pitcher in the MLB. That brings us to our number 1, which I feel like it's almost an MLB-wide consensus on who the best pitcher in the MLB is, and that's Jacob deGrom. And you kind of feel bad for deGrom because, in the past couple seasons, he'd go 8 innings, allow 1 run, and strike out 13 guys and get the loss because he played for the Mets. But hey, we could see a ridiculous year from Jacob deGrom this year because he's going to have offensive help.
Yeah. He's never had a bad season over the course of his career. And he's 70-51 in his career with a 2.61 ERA. That's how bad the Mets are, or at least have been.
A pitcher shouldn't be that close to 500 with a 2.6 ERA.
He went 10-9 in 2018 with a 1.7 ERA. That is disgusting. But yeah, he leads this league in strikeouts and ERA, and then, it's like a 500 record. It's so sad. But I think this season, like you said, the Mets are going to be a lot better offensively, and I think he could have an insane year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I honestly think that he could just absolutely blow everyone out of the water, especially with finally having some help. So yeah, that's what we've got for our top 10 MLB pitchers. Those lists are going to be posted on our Instagram. You guys are going to be able to interact, say what you guys think about it. If you made it this far into the podcast, we love you. You heard what we talked about, the Super Bowl, the NBA Week 8 takeaways, and obviously our top 10 MLB pitchers. Like I said, follow us on all of our social medias. You guys can interact with us there. Thank you so much for listening or watching on YouTube. And for my co-host, Logan Ring, my name is Diego Sandoval, signing off.
Signing off.